And you got that right. Yeah, okay. I see. Seeds.
The thing good on your computer over there? Go ahead and have the camera facing the audience.
There we go, yeah. The seeds of sound living. Yeah. Breathe cold patterns. He yelled out. There it is. Okay, for the first. I wanted to. Yeah, because I'm just trying to. I don't know. I'm just trying to do some kind of. Yes. And where in Arkansas? Okay. And we also upstairs in Practical, we have a genealogy center that is part of cows and looks for weeds. And we have some other research. And then there's some other I don't know that genealogy class working on picture. Okay. So Arkansas County. Mark is Payson, Arkansas.
Payson's would be prayer.
And does it have two counties?
It really does.
That's an all day HPP job, right?
Yeah.
So, they, the other night at Practical Christmas, we had some friends over, and we were talking about something, and our friend said, she's in the medical profession, she's not, and telling her, that, there were 75 families. I said, another 70 families. She looks. Yes. Yeah. I'm sure it does. Please on yourself. Yeah. I actually. Yeah. Ready? Okay. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for being here today, and Happy New Year. Welcome to January 2023 Legacies and Lunch. I always feel so funny when I say that at the beginning of each year because it's really the first time I've said it. This is a hybrid program of CAL's Butler Center for Arkansas Studies. I'm Heather Registers-Abendon, the programs and website coordinator for the Bobby L. Roberts Library of Arkansas History and Art. Just a couple of announcements we always like to make at the beginning of these programs. The Roberts Library Research Room is open on the second floor Tuesday through Friday, 10 until 5, and Saturday, noon until 4. And every Legacies and Lunch Day, the Galleries and Bookstore, which is right here on the first floor in Roberts, does a 50% off select Arkansas history-related books. So take advantage of that. If you'd like to sign up for our email our email newsletter, that's the word I'm looking for, then you can sign up on our website by going to robertslibrary.org, or when she's sitting there, Madeline will be over there and she'll take your name and information. You weren't there for me to point to you, Madeline. Madeline. Also, if you're in the room and you need your parking sticker validated, she is the person with the magic stickers for parking. Please consider donating to CAL's Butler Center for Arkansas Studies or the Encyclopedia of Arkansas. We will graciously take your generous donation either on a monthly basis or one time. So go to robertslibrary.org or encyclopedia.net to donate. So today's talk is being live streamed to YouTube and will be available immediately following the program. And today's speakers will take questions at the end of the session. We'll move this mic back to the center and you'll be able to come up and ask your question if you're in person, or if you're on Zoom, you can put it in the chat box. Okay, so now to the program. This month, we are joined by Bernice Alexander Bennett with Lyle Gibson, Susan Lasley, Jessica Trotter, and Angela Walton-Raji to talk about Black Homesteaders of the South. So in just a second, I'm going to turn it over to Bernice, who will provide you with an overview of the Homestead Act of 1862, the application process it took to acquire up to 160 acres of public land, and what is available to researchers in land entry case files. So please give them all I guess a round of applause. We haven't done I'm used to virtual, so I'm used to virtual. But here is everybody. If you want to bring down the videos so that we can see everybody. We have a great panel. There they are, yay. So Bernice, take it away.
Thank you so much and welcome everyone.
Oh, wait a second, Bernice. It's all of a sudden there's no volume.
Okay.
You're unmuted.
Yes.
Oh, okay. They can hear her. They can, we can't.
Okay. Okay, should I start?
Okay. Right. Okay, Bernice, say something again.
Hello, everyone.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So everybody on Zoom can hear you, but the room can't hear you, and it worked fine just a minute ago. I have a Buckeye in my hand that someone gave me, and I've been rubbing it furiously. Maybe I've been rubbing it too much. Okay. Okay, give us just a second, Bernice.
Certainly.
You know what we might be able to do? Wait. Before you do that.
Yep.
All right, go get it. control, I'm gonna put my audio on here
Okay, great.
and we're gonna run it through this mic.
Okay, sounds good.
But I don't want to have any feedback.
On that mic. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Have an idea. Okay.
Okay. Okay, Bernice. Try it now.
Okay, I'm hearing feedback.
Okay, you're
Okay,
good. Okay. So do we turn? Okay, try now.
Hello, everyone.
Are you getting echo still?
No.
When you guys talk, there's an echo.
Okay. Try it now, Bernice.
Okay, hello, everyone. I want to welcome all of you to the Black Homesteaders of the South Legacies and Luncheon session. And we will focus specifically on the Arkansas Black Homesteaders. As you can see, this sign is saying free lands for hundreds of thousands of families under the Homestead Act of 1862. So what I will share with you today will be information about the Homestead Act of 1862, the eligibility requirements, what is the application process, what you can learn from the land entry papers, and what is a land patent. So let's just start off with the Homestead Act of 1862. The original act was signed by Abraham Lincoln on May 20th, 1862, and it went into effect January 1st, 1863. In fact, the first homesteader was named Daniel Freedman, and his homestead was located in Beatrice, Nebraska. Now, the act stated they had certain stipulations. First of all, any individual applying had to be over the age of 21. They should never take up arms against the United States. Later on, former slaves, women, and immigrants could file for land, and they had to show evidence of improvements for a period of 5 years or more. Now, we're talking about individuals that were eligible to obtain up to 160 acres of land. Now, you had to also do certain things. You had to file an application, and as I mentioned, show improvements over a period of 5 years, which meant you had to settle on that land, improve that land, and then go back with the evidence to file for a deed of title or a patent. So I found this article in the Arkansas Weekly Mansion, published in Little Rock, Arkansas on Saturday, September 22nd, 1883. And it states, among the states and territories, Arkansas ranks 5th in the number of original homesteads entered from the passage of the Homestead Act of May 20th, 1862 to June 30th, 1883. Now, during that period, a grand total for Arkansas was 47,945. The number of homesteads entered in Arkansas just for that fiscal year that ended June 30th, 1883 was 3,035. Now, I'll say more about Arkansas land later. So I just want you to take a look at this map. This map will show you all of the public land states that were eligible for homesteaders. The states in blue, the 13 original colonies, and Texas were not eligible. So that when you're looking for homestead land, remember you are looking at about 30 states that were eligible, of which Arkansas is one of them. So I mentioned that they had to file for a deed of title or a land patent. Now, patents are the legal documents that transferred land ownership from the United States government to individuals. But let's go back and look at all of the land in the homesteaders in in Arkansas. In total, 74,620 homesteaders were proved up in Arkansas. Look at the total acreage, over 33 million acres of land, which is 24% of the land in the state, which means that we really have a large opportunity to find descendants of homesteaders in the state of Arkansas. But how do you know that your ancestor obtained homestead land? Well, some people may know because they were told through oral history. Others, through your genealogical research, you found a land patent. But some of you may not know that you could go to the Bureau of Land Management, and this is the website, put in the state of Arkansas, a county where your ancestors are from, and a surname. For this particular search, I put in the surname Basque and found a Irving M. Basque. Now, I want you to see the date that he received his land was January 21st, 1899. If you just look at this sheet, you will see that he went to the land office in Camden. And it does state that under the authority of the Homestead Act, this is how this land was obtained. And he obtained 123.36 acres of land. And more will be said about Irving Bass later. This is what the land patent looked like. And some of you may have found these patents and have just decided, oh, wow, we have this land. But guess what? If you find a land patent, this is the end of the process. I want to take you back to the beginning of the process, where you will find a land entry case file. Remember, I mentioned filing an application? Well, that is what you're seeking. You're seeking that primary document that will give you additional information about your ancestor. So what's in the land entry case files? There's an application. And yes, there is a filing fee. Although you saw the announcement, free land, they still had to pay a small filing fee. You will find out exactly where that land is located. You will find the date the claimant settled on the land and the improvements that they made on the land, as well as individuals in the household. Can you imagine reading an application and that application states, my wife and 13 children? Well, you will find that in the land entry case files. You will also find a legal notice in the newspaper. This is a notice in the newspaper. In most cases, it had to run in the newspaper for at least 6 weeks. So you will find the name of the newspaper. This particular newspaper is the Southern Standard in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. And this was dated January 26, 1884. And it lists the name of the homesteader. You will see the names of the witnesses, and you will see the name of the register. Well, it's important for you to understand that when you see the names of the witnesses, you are also finding out more information about your ancestor. This could, for some, we'll call it the fan club. You may also pick up some challenges that the homesteader experienced. And then the date the land patent certificate was issued. All primary documentation that perhaps if you did not have that land entry case file, you wouldn't even know. So we're going to look at some of the locations of the Black homesteaders. And I'm happy that today you will have an opportunity to meet the descendants of Black homesteaders of Arkansas: Lyle Gibson, Susan Lasley, Jessica Trotter, and Angela Walton-Raji. And all four of them have written stories that are in the Black Homesteaders of the South book. What will you learn from them? Well, you'll learn when did their ancestors settle on the land, where it's located, how many acres, what did they do, what kind of challenges, and what roles did the witnesses play in the application process. So I'm going to stop sharing and open it up for Lyle Gibson to start his.
Okay, is there any way I can share the screen? Says the host has disabled. Okay. Well, can everyone hear me? Okay. Well, I just had some photographs of the two ancestors that had received their land patent. Gideon. Oh, here we go. Let's see. Okay. My two ancestors were the Murphy brothers, Gideon on the left with his wife, Alice, and then Reuben Murphy. Interestingly, these two brothers were the nephews of my fourth great-grandmother, Winnie Harpole. And just a little bit of the backstory. Winnie Harpole, along with her siblings, Gideon Harpole Murphy, the father of the two Murphy brothers, and others arrived in Arkansas Territory around 1818 with their slave owner, Captain John Harpole. They had moved to that area of what will become Southwest Arkansas. I believe at the time it was Hempstead County. And then, of course, over the decades, new counties would be formed. But the area where the Murphy brothers received their patent is very close to the original area where their father had ended up settling back in the 1820s or so. The Murphy brothers, it's kind of an interesting story. Their father, Gideon Harpole Murphy, their uncle, Hardy Murphy, they were transferred in the will of 1820 to the daughter of Captain John Harpole, to a woman named Cassandra Harpole Murphy. And she left instructions that, once she died, her slaves, or the ones that she was willed from her father, would be set free. So there is a lot of backstory on the Murphy family in that part of Southwest Arkansas. But once, fast forwarding, once Denise had introduced, the idea of really documenting the Black homesteaders, and I really thank her for that, I decided just to take a dive, because at the time I was not aware that the Murphy brothers had actually received land patents. And so to my surprise, researched that, ordered the patent files through Bernice, and it just contained information that helped contextualize information that I'd already known, but also it added new information. In both cases, like for Gideon, he actually settled the land about a year prior to receiving his patent. He received his patent in 1885. And then his brother, Reuben Murphy, had settled the land roughly about 1879 or so and received his patent in 1881. Gideon received 160 acres, whereas Reuben received 40 acres. And it was typical, I guess, of that time period. They talked about, building a permanent dwelling, their house, their home, building outbuildings, smokehouse, corn crib, and things like that. The witnesses, there were several witnesses for both of the brothers. Unfortunately, in trying to research the witnesses, I have not found out whether or not there's a family connection to the Murphy or the Harpool families. However, I'm still continuing to research that. And one of the things too, and this is contextually, Southwest Arkansas, it's important to understand the geography of the area you're researching. And so I consider this part of Southwest Arkansas a corridor because as land was opening up, this is pre-Trail of Tears removal. So this is before Native Americans came through. There was a lot of trading activity in that part of Arkansas. And then once we have the Trail of Tears, of course, we're going to have more exchange, if you will, cultural exchange that's taking place between white settlers, Native Americans, enslaved Africans. And so there's a lot going on in Southwest Arkansas, and it's important to just kind of contextualize all of this information. And the land patents actually help you to understand a little bit about what's going on. Now, an interesting thing between the two brothers, Gideon actually signed his own name. And then when I looked back at the Freedman Bank records, and so yes, you have to look at multiple records, he also signed his name on the Freedman Bank records, whereas Reuben signed his name with an X. And so I'm left with questions. Why did Gideon know how to write and his brother Reuben didn't? They had the same upbringing. So still lots of questions that I need to try to answer, may not answer all of those questions. But fast forwarding today, looking at the land patents for these two brothers, this was a segment of lost history just within my collective Harpool and Murphy lines. And so when I shared this information with a lot of the family members, they were unaware. And sadly, in talking to some of the relatives today, no one knows specifically if there is a descendant that still holds the land, 160 acres for Gideon, 40 acres for Reuben. So that's another part of my journey to try to determine if there is a descendant that still owns that particular land. I didn't notice through reading the documents if they faced any challenges. It seems like it was cut and dry. They were able to do what was required. And then within a couple of years, they received that land patent. But I will say, for those who are researching or thinking about researching these land patent records, I would say go to the Bureau of Land Management site, just type in the surnames that you are researching and those particular geographical areas that Bernice had pointed out in the beginning. Just give it a try. And if you do find something, if you find a name, go ahead and order that particular patent. And I will turn it over back to Bernice.
Okay, so the next person that will be sharing her story is Susan.
Hey, everybody. My ancestors, my great-grandparents on my father's mother's side were Don and Minnie Lee McCormick. Don originally came from North Carolina, from Robeson County, North Carolina. And his dad, his parents, who had been slaves, moved the family from North Carolina to Jefferson County, Arkansas, the county seat being Pine Bluff, because there was a huge demand for labor in the timber industry. Arkansas, and especially Jefferson County, had a huge demand for lumberjacks, and that's what they went there for, and plus the opportunity to have free land. I'm going to share my screen. You see here. This is my great-grandmother, Minnie Lee McCormick, Minnie Lee Wainwright Robinson McCormick. It's a long story. If you want to see a picture of her husband, Don McCormick, that's on the inside of the book. So you'll have to look at the book for that. But one of the things that really interested me, first of all, I didn't know about any of this until my father's cousin, Bonnie Lee McGlown, told me. And I think that's an important thing for people to consider, is to talk to your elders, ask questions of your elders, find out, get them to tell the family stories, because this information could very well have been lost. I didn't know until about 4 or 5 years ago about any of this. One of the things that was interested to me, just like with Lyle, was that Don McCormick was able to read and write. Remember, he was the son of slaves. And this is the letter, one of the letters that he had written, in conjunction with his application. He was providing the fee, the commission, and the proof of publication to the land office. And this is his original handwriting. You can see his original signature here. He didn't sign with an X. He signed because he could read and write. He signed with his own signature. And I was really, because I'm very much into education, so I was really impressed by that. Now he had a major challenge. As far as getting the application in, he actually turned it in late. His challenge was that he had been arrested and they put in jail because someone had accused him of cutting down state land. This land, that we're talking about today, part of the Homestead Act, this is federal or United States land. Someone had accused him of cutting down timber on Arkansas state land. He was arrested, he was put in jail. He was in jail long enough that he missed his deadline. So he had to file an affidavit with the court explaining why, I can find it here, explaining why it's not showing. Let's see. Okay, there it is. His affidavit explaining his challenge, that he was in the Jefferson County Jail, charged with unlawfully cutting state timber, but he was acquitted, released from custody, so he could continue with his application. He and Minnie Lee were eventually awarded 120 acres. The name of the town was Dexter, Arkansas, which is in Jefferson County. And this is what his land patent, his final land patent looks like. Let's see. I don't know if you can see that. Okay. Yeah, it was in 1903, signed by Theodore Roosevelt himself. He received 120 acres of land in October of that year. 120 acres, Don McCormick. And that is how my family, that part of the family, wound up with 120 acres of land. Now, I don't know the exact disposition of all of those acres, Eventually, the family, much of the family, not all of them, but much of the family moved to Little Rock, Arkansas, where I was born and raised. So, and I still have my library card for the Central Arkansas Library System because I go there a lot. I was there last October because I wanted to find out why the details of why my great grandfather had been arrested and put in jail. So I went to the Jefferson County Courthouse to see if I could find the records. And to my dismay, the index book that would have contained his records was missing. And someone there speculated that it was in a place they call the barn, which is, I guess, off-site storage. But they were afraid to go there because they were concerned that there was a lot of mold, that there had been leaks in that building, and there were a lot, which, was off-site. And there was a lot of mold and, possibility that the records were destroyed and so on and so forth, which raises an issue that is near and dear to my heart. Courthouses are required by law to keep records in all the states and to keep them accessible to the public. But if the records are kept in an area or they're not being kept up for whatever reason, people's histories are rotting as I speak. This should not be the case. And I think it would be a good idea for historical societies and libraries, especially, in particular, the Pine Bluff Public Library. They have a genealogy department that I spoke with, about this, and they were willing to actually go into that barn and get those records. But I want everybody to get together and help reclaim records that we need in order to know our history. And that's what I have to say for today.
Thank you, Susan. And Jessica, you're next.
Okay, I'm going to share a quick slideshow. My name is Jessica Trotter. My family is from Bradley County, Arkansas. And I'm going to talk a little bit about I'm going to talk about Levi Hampton. This is the person that I wrote about in the book. The people pictured are actually Harrison Trotter and his wife, Rhodey. This is the route I took to get to Levi Hampton. This is a homestead that still exists. It's not in great shape, but it still exists in Bradley County. I had heard a family story that the land came down through an uncle, and was able to kind of work backwards and find out that that was the case. Through Levi Hampton's will, he left land that he'd already given. Just wanted to clarify in his will that the land he'd already given Harrison Trotter was his inheritance. This is land that my grandfather grew up on. Everybody would go back to. I've only been once, but it was moving just to go to see that in some ways the land is taking back the air, some of the family homes that were there. But it is still, I think most of it is still within the family, though a lot of it is rented out. But it led to the question of, where did Levi Hampton get the land? I mean, I wanted to know where Harrison got it. I also wanted to know where Levi got it. And so working backwards, a couple of different ways, you come to the realization that Levi Hampton is showing up in the Bureau of Land Management records, or, depending on how you find things. At the time, I wasn't really sure about how all of this worked. So when I first came across the homesteads, the concept of homesteads, so I was looking at every bit of information I could find. So one of the first things I actually found was the family maps books for different counties. And there's a number, I don't know if all of Arkansas is done, but Bradley County is. And this is just a little snip to show that Levi Hampton, and look at that time difference. Levi Hampton was formerly enslaved. He was held by either John R. Hampton, who you see around him on that map, or the allied families, his extended family. And so I'm looking at this, realize this is a, map showing when people got land from the United States. So I'm looking at why and how and figure out how the homestead process works. I went through the process that all of us have in terms of getting a hold of the file. The file was a bit of a roller coaster ride for me as I worked my way through. The important thing kind of to know about my family is that Harrison Trotter was really hard to figure out. There's a very definite story about who his parents are, but his parents appear and disappear within records so much that it is very hard to kind of really truly trace it. But he lived his later life, his later childhood with Levi Hampton. He was listed as a nephew in his household. And he named his first child Levi, who is my grandfather, and my daddy is also Levi. So that has come down as an important person within my family. But Harrison's Trotter was Sam Trotter. There was a number of Trotters, small group of Trotters within this part of Bradley County. I thought this would be the absolute perfect thing in trying to work out my all these people. This was perfect. The witnesses that Levi said he was going to have come and talk for him were Sam Trotter, that would be Harrison's dad, Lyle Trotter, Harrison's uncle. Wilson Terry is another cousin, and James Newton was actually could go either way. It was either Sam and Ryle's stepfather, or it was a step sibling. Both of them were a James. Both of them were alive at the time. So as I'm flipping through, this is like the best moment in the world because it's going to give me a little bit more information about these people who keep falling through the cracks. Unfortunately, none of those people were available at the time of the hearing. And I don't intend for you to read this, but it was one of those things that in doing research on the formerly enslaved, on African Americans in a time when they're not taken as seriously as they should be, this is basically saying, yeah, they couldn't come, but he's okay. And, they're all the same. It's basically the gist of this letter. On the upside, it worked. He did have a couple of people who were available. Will Newton is actually another cousin. He is related to the Trotter's half siblings. He's one of the half siblings. It did clarify a lot about Levi Hampton between Will and Levi's own testimony. This is land they had already been on. He had been on this land. He applies for the homestead in 1884. He'd been on that land since the 1870s. He's like, I think maybe 1873 is when I moved in within his own testimony. This is people kind of getting land where they already were, taking advantage of what was already there and what they knew. This is timberland area. This is area that they cleared for farming, but also the timber was an important part of the land. And that's actually the end of what I wanted to show, but oops, stop share. He had got 120 acres in July of 1891. And the fact that a portion of that still remains within the family is really important and has started me on a journey to look more into. I have also been able to find homesteaders in Jefferson County area as well. So it's been a trip going down this road. So thank you, Bernice.
Thank you, Jessica. And Angela. Angela is our last descendant.
Why, thank you. And it is a pleasure to be here. I am going to share my screen with you all. And once I know that you can all see my screen, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Uncle Irving Bass. I'm not sure. Can you see my screen as yet? Someone can let me know or give me a thumbs up if the screen.
Yes, now.
See,
Right. Okay, this is my Uncle Irving Bass. And for many of us in the family who descend from the Bass family of Southwest Arkansas, he's referred to as good-looking Uncle Irving. So he's a very handsome man. Well, in 1976, I had a nice chat. My grandmother was still alive, and she was his youngest sister. And I asked her about her life growing up, and she mentioned, she talked about her life living on Papa's land. And well, the family just had a whole lot of land. Papa had land, which I did find out. Papa did have some land. He made a cash payment for some public land. And she mentioned Bud Bass, which was a nickname for Buddy, which was what Uncle Irving was often called, Little Buddy or Bud. And she said, oh, yeah, Bud Bass, he was my teacher, he taught me up through the 6th reader, and which is, I guess, what people at that time referred to as a grade level. Anyway, many years ago, maybe 20 years ago, in the early days or earlier days of the internet, I heard about this Bureau of Land Management site, and Bernice was sharing with you how to even get to it. And so I decided, Sevier County, that's down in that southwest corner. That's where some of Lyle's folks come from as well. And let me type in the name Bass. And I was surprised. Oh, Louis Mitchell Bass. That's Papa. That's my great-grandfather. And there's his son, Irving Bass, good-looking Uncle Irving. And I noticed, oh, he also got land, and he got quite a bit of land. He had 123 acres. Well, I had found, and I hope that, okay, I had found the land patent, and I have had this for years, well over 10 years, over 15 years. And I have been just moving through life happily along, thinking, guess what? Oh, I found my folks had land. Isn't that nice? And I always thought that was it. And till maybe the last couple of years, I started, hearing people saying, yeah, you need to look at their application. Well, they call it the land entry papers. And it was one of those things, as you can see, and this is the same document that Bernice shared earlier. You see the land description. I'm thinking, oh, well, it's probably just going to have things about the land itself. So I'll get around to it someday on one of my trips to the archives. Well, of course, things happen. I'm going to fast forward to last year when a lot of energy, thanks to Bernice, was being put into looking into the homesteading story. Get your land entry papers, get them. Bernice created a group on Facebook, Black Homesteaders of the South. And finally I said, well, I guess I'll get mine too. I got one for Uncle Irving. And again, I was surprised. Well, some of the pages in the land entry file were expected information with the name of the homesteader, but information about the legal description of the land, the northwest quadrant of the southeast quadrant, etc. We're used to that language. And I was surprised in terms of the notice for publication. There were some names of witnesses. Louis M. Bass. Wait a minute. That's great-grandpa Mitchell. That's his father, Louis Mitchell Bass. Then Henry Dillahunty. Well, in Southwest Arkansas, especially around Horatio and that part of Sevier County, there's a large clan of Dillahunty families. And my grandmother always called them those Dillahunts. But their real name is Dillahunty. And sure enough, here's Henry Dillahunty, who was a close family friend, who was a witness, John Martin. Uncle John, who is actually a half-brother to the Basses, their mother, Georgia Ann Bass, when she married great-grandpa Louis Mitchell Bass, she brought a child into that marriage, and that was John Martin, whom I knew in my lifetime as Uncle John. And James Rice, I've yet to figure out who he is. But in terms of being connected to the family, if not necessarily by blood, but as an associate. But I was intrigued to see that. Okay, well, I guess it's worthwhile getting the land entry papers. But there was more. And of course, you get the information, the testimony, the witnesses. It's a pre-printed form with information. But one of those questions was really an eye-opener for me. Question number 6, have the claimant and family resided continuously on the homestead since first establishing residence? And sure enough, it says, well, he's unmarried. He's resided continuously on it, except when he was off at school. Now, this is the 1890s. He's away. He's off the land at school. Where was he? We're talking 1890s, a man who was the son of enslaved, once formerly enslaved people. Where was he at school? What school? Where was he going off to that would take him from that little hamlet of Horatio, Arkansas, to go to school? Well, first of all, a map of Arkansas. Sevier County that you see in red is in that southwest portion of the state. So where could he have gone to school in the 1890s? Well, there's Philander Smith, which was established in 1877, Arkansas Baptist, established in 1884. And then I left off the year, but Arkansas AM&N, as we knew it once upon a time, that was established in the late 1870s as well. In fact, I found some information. I decided to go and look at the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff as we now know it. But it was originally, as I knew it, to be Arkansas AM&N. But I found some more information about it. And you can see in the 1870s, early 1870s, the original name was Branch Normal College. I'd never heard of Branch Normal College. When I grew up, because the name wasn't changed until the 1980s or so, maybe later, to the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, I always knew this Branch Normal College to be Arkansas AM&N. And I wasn't sure, whether I could find any more information about that, not only the school, but also, did Uncle Irving go there? Or did he go to Philander, or did he go to Arkansas Baptist? I really did not know. So I became very curious. Branch Normal College. I decided to do a little bit more research. And one of the things they'll tell you, Google is your friend. Well, guess what I found? The Library of Congress has a couple of catalogs. Well, they're called circulars, catalog and circulars. And I found two actually, 1892 and 1893, a circular reflecting information on the school. One is 32 pages and the other booklet is 34 pages, and all of the pages are scanned. Well, I was surprised. Information basically about the school. As we know, yearbooks today, we know all pictures of everybody. Well, they weren't putting pictures of students or faculty at the time, but they did list the names of students. And in that first catalog, 1892, that I found, guess what I found? Irving Bass. He was a student. They listed every student and the county from which they came. And the only student from Sevier County at that time was Irving Bass. What a surprise. Wow. And in fact, when I had first Bernice was very, very helpful in obtaining land entry papers. And she had called and had said, you've got to see this. I've stopped sharing. You've got to see the land entry papers of your ancestor. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, the descriptions of the land. But wow, look at what it revealed. Not only who the witnesses were, but I'm learning something about first of all, Uncle Irving was the first college graduate. Some of those in the family who became teachers in the 1940s and 50s, they always thought they were the first college graduates in the family. Nope, Uncle Irving had them beat by decades. And again, I'm going after a land record, but it opened up a brand new piece of information about the family, about the family's legacy, and about the family's resilience. I cannot be more thrilled. And I really have to thank Bernice, because Bernice, girl, when are you going to get your land entry papers, for pushing me? And I will just simply stop there. But will say to anyone from Arkansas, take a look at the land, because for many of us, and actually the history of the entire country, is a story of not just control and power, it's about the land. People who came here from Europe, it was about the land. They pushed indigenous people aside. It was about the land. I have Oklahoma ancestors, as you know, who were sent to the western frontier to Indian Territory because it's about the land. But many of us in other parts of the South, the issue of power and control, and what's the issue today that we hear about gerrymandering and political districts being changed? It's all about the land. But our stories of resilience come from the land. Arkansas is one of the states that certainly came under the Homesteading Act. And wow, it should be a must-go-to place for anybody researching family history. I can only say thank you, Bernice. Thank you for pushing me to get those land entry papers. You've just changed the trajectory of the Bass family history, originally from Tennessee, Giles County, sent to Southwest Arkansas to work in lumber, as was pointed out earlier. And wow, here's another part of the history we never knew. And this information is within the last 2 years, and I've been researching steadily since 1991. That's what, 31 years. So anyway, thank you. And I'm turning it back to you, Bernice.
Okay, and thank you so much for your enthusiasm and sharing. And I just want to just say 2 more things to you. First of all, we started this whole project, the Black Homesteaders, seeking individuals that would be willing to share their stories on the Homestead National Historical Park site. And if you go to this site, you will find the Arkansas stories, the Louisiana stories, stories of the Great Plains, Mississippi, Florida. Those stories are there. But those stories are also in the book entitled The Black Homesteaders of the South. So to summarize, I would like to encourage those of you that are listening to join the Descendants of African American Homesteaders Facebook page. This is a page where you will find additional information. Find your land on the Bureau of Land Management website. Verify through oral history, census, and other documents. As you can see that others that have shared with you, they've found additional information. Order your land entry case files from the National Archives and write and share your story with the Homestead National Historical Park Service. And please also order your book, The Black Homesteaders of the South. I'd like to just thank everyone and turn this back over to you, Heather.
Thank you so much, Bernice and Jessica and Susan and Lyle and Angela, everybody. It was fabulous. Okay, hang on. Are y'all getting echo on the Zoom?
No, because you are muted on Zoom.
But you can hear me.
Yes.
Barely.
Very little.
Okay. Then let me
Unmute.
No, you're good. No.
Is that
No, you're fine.
okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, now that's better. Okay. Technology. I loved it about a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago. Okay, so great questions well, first of all, tons of praise. If y'all on the panel are not looking at the chat, you can open it up and it's going to make your day. There's so much. I've got to find, there was a question. So Clay had a question and I want somebody on the panel to answer it. I have my own idea, but he said, he's not from Arkansas. So how does he know about the state, the geography, we all talk about these counties, we talk about these places. So how does he figure out the geography, the terrain of the state? Anybody?
Well, the terrain of Arkansas, I would start off with a map of Arkansas to find out where all of the various counties are located. And if you're not from Arkansas, but you have ancestors from Arkansas, I would certainly start off with your genealogy. And if you're going to look anywhere, look in the census, see where they are living. And then from there, determine, are they listed as farmers? Do they own their own land? And then ask the question, how did they get that land? Did they purchase it? Or was it through the Homestead Act of 1862, which means go to the Bureau of Land Management and put your ancestor's name in there and see if they come up as landowners.
So one of the other questions, Dara says, where can we locate those case files? And I think you had a link, and I will provide those links to folks that registered as well. So we can get that information, but yes, that perfect.
Right. You can order your land entry case files from the National Archives. And this is the website. It'll take you directly to the place. And I hope you can see that.
I may be in the way here. Questions from the audience here. If you want to come up to the mic. While you're thinking of your questions in the kind of, I guess we can call it the pre-chat that I was having with the panelists, and we had somebody in the audience already. The Seeds of Sally Gooden book came up, which is a great book about Black homesteading. I encourage, and in addition to getting Bernice's book, this new one, The Seeds of Sally Gooden, is a great book. Ruth Polk Patterson is the author's name.
And if I may, Ruth is
yeah.
a descendant. Her family is connected to the Murphy Harpole line as well. So there's a lot of information. And to that first question about geography, most counties will have a brief county history. And so those are important as well.
Here's a question from Phyllis Hogan. She says, are the files of those who were not awarded a patent still available?
You may still find, I have found files for some of my relatives that did not receive a land patent. But when you put in the request, you'll have to state, that they didn't get a land patent, but there's additional information that you will have to provide so that you can get those files.
And Sheila asks, can we get all the links in an email? Yes, Sheila, you will get an email with all the links. And then Carla Coleman would like to know how she can get her book autographed.
Yes, you can go to my website, jeanniebroots.com, and you will find a link that will take you to the page where you can order the book and get an autographed book.
And I just want to reiterate, the Bureau of Land Management website, I think, is one of the least used genealogy websites. I mean, people think about Ancestry and they think about Heritage Quest and they think about Family Search and Family Tree Now and all this, but you can find out so much information because, like I think Angela was saying, land is power, and it is just such an important site. So I encourage everybody. It's not the prettiest site, it's not flashy, but it has a lot of really great information. And they were scanning and digitizing stuff long before anybody else was doing it. So.
Can I make one more comment? Just that it's really, people weren't always able to hold on to the land. I have an example where they were, but I also have a lot of examples where they were kind of run off of it over time. It is really worth looking, trying that, searching names, looking at the counties where your families are, and really just seeing if they're in there, because they really might have gotten their homestead and lost it in the meantime.
I just want to agree with what she just said. And I want to mention two websites. One is called History Geo, which is great, where you can see some of those images. I think some of my fellow Arkansas researchers have already used it. But a second site is just as useful. It's called acrevalue.com, where you can zoom in from, outer space, Google Earth, and the closer you get to the land as you zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, the grid maps of the plat maps will appear, and you can determine with the legal description of your land, township, range, section, then you can find out who owns that land today. And if the land is for sale and who owns it. If you subscribe to Acre Value, you can look at it for free, some information, but if you want to see, how much is the land worth now, or have taxes been paid on it, it's a fabulous website that can give you even more information on the current state of the land that your ancestors owned. So I'll type the links in the chat below as well.
Perfect. And I was just reminded, I need to put a shout out for the Encyclopedia of Arkansas, which is something that we do here at CALS. And you can find all kinds of information for clay and geography of Arkansas, as well as homesteading. And we have taken time to document a lot of racial violence in the state as well. So all those things are important. So check out the EOA, the Encyclopedia of Arkansas.net. Well, our time is up. Thank you, everybody in room 124. Thank you for everybody on Zoom. This has been recorded and it will be streamed to YouTube, or it's being streamed to YouTube. And so you'll be able to view it again and again and again. Someone just put in the chat Janice Kearney's book, which is very important. Cotton Field of Dreams. Thank you. I knew it had Cotton Field in it. Cotton Field of Dreams. She is from Gould, and so that's a great book as well. But yes, this will be available on our YouTube channel for everybody on Zoom. You'll get an email, and then anybody in the room that I don't have your email address, I'll be more than happy to send it to you as well. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, panelists. This was fabulous.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, panelists.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Heather? Are you still there, Heather?
Yeah.